Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Benjamin Z. Miller Investor Networking Group. So good to see everyone from around the world at the meeting here today. In this presentation, we are going to talk about wholesale real estate. And if you have not heard about this, it's something you should definitely be aware of. We're going to go through how you can make money on real estate without even owning the real estate, just by selling a contract. So instead of selling real estate, you're going to be selling a contract. It's a great thing to have in your tool chest. The way that it works is a wholesaler is someone that goes and gets a wholesale price. They get a very cheap price on real estate. They may, if the asset's worth $100,000, they may get a contract on it for $54,000. They would do this with a motivated seller. A normal seller is not going to sign a contract for $54,000 on an asset that's worth $100,000, but a motivated seller will do that. And that's how a wholesaler makes money, because once that wholesaler gets the contract, then they can turn around and assign that contract for maybe $10,000 more, maybe $20,000, maybe whatever it might be. It's a way that what it hinges on is being able to negotiate a cheap price. So to be good at wholesaling, you've got to be good at negotiating, and you've got to be good at locating a lot of leads for motivated sellers. Motivated sellers, all sorts of reasons why they may be motivated, but to do a wholesale deal, the first step is to get a contract at far below the actual market value. So a question that people sometimes ask is, well, how can you sell something if you don't own the real estate? The answer to that is you're not selling real estate. You're selling your equitable interest in a contract, because when you sign that contract with the seller, you sign it in a way. In the United States, the legal language that you put in for the buyer, it's going to read your name and or assigns, or your LLC and or assigns. So that would be the purchaser, the buyer on the contract. And then the seller, a lot of times what you can do with the seller, and it's actually in some ways easier, is if you just write in owner of record. You can also write it in where you put the seller's name in, but a lot of times when you're dealing with wholesale deals, there may be some issues with, who is the actual owner of record, where maybe you're dealing with several different people. If you just write in owner of record, you can have them sign it however. And then the title company can, on the day of closing, if there's a correction, they can adjust it. But that's how that basically works there. So that's the basics of wholesaling. You're gonna take advantage of it. You're gonna find a motivated seller, and that motivated seller has to accept less than market value. And let me explain. A lot is made of negotiating, and that's certainly important, but you can't do anything with negotiating if you're dealing with someone that's not motivated. So you can be a great negotiator, and if you are dealing with someone that's not very motivated, it's really hard to get them to agree to let you put a contract on the property for less than market value. But what you're going to do is you're going to put in what's called a weasel clause. And we have a picture here of a little animal called a weasel. And a weasel has a reputation for being very hard to catch, very nimble. And that's where this term weasel clause in a legal contract comes from, because the weasel clause, it allows you to, if you're not able to sell your contract, you can just cancel it and say, I don't want it. I've changed my mind. And there's many examples of weasel clauses that you can put into a contract. So here are 5 examples, but there are hundreds of examples that could potentially be used. I just use these to give you an idea of what a weasel clause is. A good example is subject to approval. So that means that you have to give written approval of the property inspection, that you approve of it. That's a weasel clause. A financing contingency, it says that your offer is contingent on you receiving a loan at a competitive market interest rate. So if the interest rate on the loan offer that you got as a buyer is too high, you can cancel because it's not a competitive market rate. Due diligence period, that's something that you can put in where you can cancel for any reason. Maybe you put in a 15-day due diligence period. A classic is subject to your partner's approval. So that means that you're going to submit the offer and your offer is still subject to your partner's approval. So if your business partner doesn't approve, you have a right to cancel the contract. Subject to the sale of other property that you own, subject to the sale of some other asset that you own, that it has to close within 60 days, for example. So these give you a way to easily, if you're not able to wholesale the contract, if you're not able to find a buyer for the contract, you can just cancel it. Now, why off market? That is something that's so important. It's probably the number one reason that most wholesalers, when they try to do this, they fail, is they waste a lot of time trying to put contracts on listed property that have a real estate agent representing the seller. Don't be that new wholesaler that doesn't know what he's doing and just goes and wastes everyone's time by calling up a real estate agent and trying to get them to put an offer on a property. You can just as easily create your own contract. You're not going to waste the real estate agent's time, and the real estate agent's not going to be able to help you very much anyway, because they're in a different market. They're focused on the normal market. You're focused on the market that is the motivated seller market, totally different.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about off-market real estate versus on-market real estate, and which is the right choice. So you want to avoid on-market deals. So anything that you see that's advertised for sale publicly, maybe it's on the multiple listing service. Maybe there's a real estate agent that put a sign in the yard. Maybe if it's a commercial deal, it's on LoopNet advertised for sale. You want to avoid these things. You don't want to go near them. You're just going to use a lot of your time and energy chasing the deals that all the other investors are chasing, okay? You've got to find your own deals, and you only want off-market. Now, why off-market? Okay, first of all, let me say this. Is it possible to find a deal every now and then that's on the market? Yes, it is. Is it possible to make money on a listed deal? Of course it's possible, but it's a lot harder. You want to stack the odds in your favor. You don't want to be doing this the hard way. You want to do it the easy way. And the easy way is you go out there and you generate your own leads for motivated sellers, and then you're going to sort them to determine which sort of sellers are motivated, which are not motivated. And I'll go through that in another lesson, how to quickly do that. But let's just go through it again, because I want to make it crystal clear. If you get on the internet and you see it as for sale, where there's some real estate agent that has a listing that they're offering it, you don't call that agent. Don't waste your time. You don't even want to talk to them. It's just a waste of time. Basically, if you pick up the phone and call the real estate agent is going to try to sell you on buying the property. That's what they do. So they're going to use all of their sales skills to try to sell you. So if you tell them you're an investor, they're going to encourage you to make an offer. Then they're going to tell you that they want to see, that you've got all the money lined up, ready to go. And they're going to do their absolute best sales pitch. You don't want any of that. You don't even want to talk to them. You're just wasting time. Don't chase those deals. That's not an effective way. It's so much easier to find an off-market deal. What's an off-market deal? An off-market deal is one that is not advertised as for sale. So you don't want to go and make 100 lowball offers on listed properties. The reason you don't want to do that is it's going to waste either a lot of your time, or if you've got some real estate agent that's a new agent that you've convinced them that it's a great idea to work with you as a buyer's agent, where they're going to go out and make offer after offer at 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, it's just going to waste time. Because even on the ones where you do occasionally get the seller to say yes, there's normally a bunch of offers that come in right at the wrong time that are lined up with, fantastic financing, proof of funds, all of this. You don't make life hard. Go for the easy money, and the easy money is off market. So don't pay any attention to what the other investors are doing. Don't worry about it. You're going to keep it simple. And basically, you could do something as simple as going and knocking on doors in a particular neighborhood. And when the person opens the door, you could say, hey, I'm looking to buy a property in this neighborhood, and I wanted to see if you guys might consider selling this house. If you go knock on 100 doors, you're going to find a deal. You go knock on 300, 400, 500 doors, you're going to find a deal. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to go knock on doors. I'm just using it as an example. There's many ways to build a pipeline. But if you go to a house and there's a for sale sign and it has a real estate agent, just walk on by. Don't waste your time talking to them. Don't call the real estate agent. Leave that to the ones that want to do that. That's the hard way. Okay. Every now and then I meet these guys that are investors and they tell me about, how good they're doing with on-market deals. If an investor has the skill to make money with an on-market deal where he has to go and successfully compete against all the other investors that are chasing deals, and he successfully wins, that guy's got a lot of talent. And if he takes that same talent and energy to be able to apply it to off-market deals, he'll do 10 times better, if not 100 times better. And the other thing, you don't think that these real estate agents are going to necessarily help you. They just are trying to size up if you can actually buy it. Now, they'll be friendly. I'm not saying, there's a wide range of agents. Some will help, maybe some won't, but I'm just trying to make it short and simple where you don't waste a lot of time. That real estate agent, if you do successfully get the seller to accept what they would have accepted, your crazy offer of, $10 in earnest money or nothing, and, it is all contingent on you getting a loan. That real estate agent, number one, he's probably, when he presents the offer, he's going to basically talk down about it to the seller because he's embarrassed to present it because he knows it's a flimsy offer. And he doesn't, he feels bad about even presenting your low ball offer. So what you want to do is you want to basically deal with the seller directly. And the beauty of it is a seller can say yes. And a seller doesn't always have all the latest analysis in terms of exactly what the property's worth. And sometimes if you just ask them, what would you sell the property for me, to me for, they will say a number that is different than the market value. But since you didn't come in and ask them, you said, what would you sell it to me for? You very often will get a surprise where they may quote a different thing. That when we go through the negotiation piece, I'll cover that in a lot more detail, how to quickly get that done. But don't waste any time chasing on-market deals. If after you make money with off-market deals, if you want to make it harder on yourself, go chase some on-market deals. Okay, and then you can do that if that's entertaining to go through that extra hassle. So that's the most important thing. You got to be doing off-market. It's the only way to go.
Yeah, that's really important, and that's probably the number one reason that most wholesalers fail. They don't go after the right kind of deals. And if you just have a rule that I don't deal with on-market deals, you'll be way ahead of everybody else. Again, you can knock on doors. Obviously, don't do that in a crime-infested neighborhood. You can put signs out. Signs that might say things like behind on payments, ? Stop foreclosure, ! Then the phone number. You can do a lot of different things there. So you just are advertising. You could use ads online. You could use online ads. That will also work. You could also do cold calling, where you even call people that are for sale by owner. You look for people that are advertising their property for sale, where it's not a real estate agent. And you say, hey, I saw you have this property for sale. I'm not interested in that particular property, But I wanted to ask you if you might have any other real estate that you wanted to sell. And if you ask that question approximately once out of 20 times, sometimes once out of 10 times, but about 1 out of 20 times, you're going to get an answer like, well, I've got another property, but it's not yet on the market. Oh, that's the one I'm interested in. Because then you've cut all of your competition out where you're not having to compete with the other investors. Of course, if you want to do the Facebook ads, you may consider using a professional company. One that I recommend is faithdigital.co.uk. Christopher and Joshua, they're very skilled at the online marketing. Another thing that you can do to find motivated sellers is code enforcement. You can contact in whatever city you're in. There's an Excel spreadsheet that has a list of every property that has violations. A lot of times, if you ask the code enforcement office to mail you the spreadsheet, sometimes they'll just release it, because it's a public record. And then you can get hundreds to thousands of properties, depending on the size of the city you're in, that have code violations. And then when you contact that owner, they're motivated, because they've got a code violation. And the only way they're going to fix that violation is by either throwing money at the problem and then dealing with the time and the headache of fixing it. Or if they're lucky, maybe they can find someone to sell that property to and make it not their problem. And that's where you come in. You need to sort out the sellers. A lot of times people, they get into, especially when they're new, they just love to talk to sellers. And there's nothing wrong with if you're a complete beginner talking to sellers to get practice. But once you have a little bit of practice, you want to quit wasting time talking to them, and you want to focus a lot more on figuring out if they're motivated or not motivated. So don't spend a lot of time on the ones that are not motivated, and you will be able to tell if they're motivated or not. A seller that is motivated will say something like, I'm 3 months behind on my payments and I got to sell. I don't care if I get anything out of it. I'll sell it for what I owe. That's a motivated seller. But if you hear a seller say something like, for the right price, we might sell, but it would have to be a really good price. You're dealing with someone that's not motivated. Just go find another one. Motivated seller might say, I inherited this property and I don't want to fix it up. It's in another state. My dad died and, it's here, and I don't want to pay a commission to a real estate agent. But a non-motivated seller would say something like, listen, you're welcome to bring me an offer and I'll consider it. Anything is for sale for the right price. That's not a motivated seller. Another not motivated seller is they will sometimes tell you, I'm not going to take any lowball offers. If you want to bring me a serious offer, I'll consider it. That's a seller that is not motivated, and you should just leave them alone. But a motivated seller might say something like, we're moving from Texas to Florida. We need to sell. We already purchased another house. We need to sell or the house will be vacant. And on the ones that are not motivated, don't let them waste your time, because they're very good at wasting time. Lots of conversations. But then at the end of it, you find out they want all cash and 100% of market value. To price these things, if you're talking residential assets, you use a comparable sales approach. So a real estate agent can help you with that, determining a price per square foot, or you can get that information just by looking at what has sold for similar properties, a price per square foot. Then multiply your subject property by that. Now, if you're on a commercial property, you're going to use a different valuation method called an income-based approach that's based on what's called a capitalization rate, cap rate for that particular asset class. But, with residential, it's comparable sales. Earnest money. It's very important when you make your offer that you whittle down to $0 or $10 the earnest money. Because if you're not able to sell your contract, you're going to lose that earnest money. And the sellers, they love to take that earnest money. So it's important that you make it clear to the seller that you're going to put down $10 in earnest money. You just send them the contract. And if they ask, why is it only $10? You're going to say, well, because with the earnest money, even if it was $10,000, you're not going to get any of it if I don't buy the property. And then they'll say, well, what do you mean? And you say, well, if I can't arrange the loan, I'm going to have to cancel the contract. Well, if it fails my inspection, I'm going to have to cancel the contract. The money's going to stay at the title company. Even if it was $10,000, it's just going to stay at the title company. I'm not releasing it until the deal closes. And if the seller's motivated, they will accept that. And if they're not motivated, they're not going to accept that. They're going to say, hey, I want real earnest money. I'm not going to accept $10. And that's okay. If they're not motivated, just cut them loose and go find another deal. What you can also do is you can offer them what's called a kick out option, where you can say, well, what is the concern here? Well, if I go and do this contract with you and somebody else comes along that makes me a better offer, I can't sell it to them. Well, listen, if you're worried about that, I'll give you a kick out option. And then they'll say, well, what is that? And then you explain, if a better offer comes along, you can just sell it to them. I'll let it go. I won't be upset. And most of them, that will stop them right there, because they're not expecting you to say that. And when you agree to that, and it's very rare that another buyer is going to come in unless it's an advertised property. But since you're dealing with a seller that has an off-market property, you're unlikely that another buyer is going to come in, as long as you move quickly and close on it as quickly as possible. Okay, so how do you assign your contract? Here's basically you've got a date on the contract, and then you fill it in where you're going to use and or assigns. So that's how that is done. Of an assignment of contract. I want to do a couple of announcements. Every Thursday, we offer a passive income webinar where you can learn about mortgage note investing with a great company called Alamo Mortgage Holdings. Alamo Mortgage Holdings is a company that can pay you a long-term passive income many, many years when you purchase one of our corporate income bonds, which are secured by packages of mortgages. And then the other company that also on Thursday has a meeting that you're invited to is called Andesite Blue. Andesite Blue is a company that can also pay you passive income, and the company is focused on the reconstruction and the rebuilding of Ukraine. So both of those are fantastic. If you are seeing this on the internet and you're thinking, I would like to learn more about how to do all of this, reach out to me. I offer a mentoring program, folks. I love to help new investors when they are just getting started. And even if you're not a new investor, even if you're a real experienced investor and think you know everything, give me a call and let's talk on the phone. I bet I can show you some things you haven't seen before. Well, folks, that is it for our meeting. I'm going to go ahead and stop the presentation and then open it up for any questions.